Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream, Your Senior To-Do List. My name is Gage Boardman with Education Quest Foundation. And just to introduce this, senior year is an incredibly fun and exciting time, but it is also a very stressful time. So to help get some tips to keep you on track, I am privileged to be joined tonight by our guest, Ashley Eichhoff. Welcome, Ashley. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before we
Thank
get
you.
started, I just want to give a quick reminder to our audience to be sure to post any questions in the chat as we go. We'll get to some of them at the end of the presentation. So, Ashley, just to start off, can you please just introduce yourself, where you're from, your background, and what you do now?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I am in Falls City, Nebraska, so very southeast corner here. I started my career actually on the college side. So I worked for right around 10 years in the college admissions side at Peru State College. So shout out if there's any future Bobcats on here. After doing that and kind of finding, I think, a passion just for helping students discover, kind of what they wanted to do and helping them get to that next step. This opportunity opened up for me in Fall City, which is where I live and my kids go to school. So opened up that they were looking for a guidance counselor. So it seemed like the next step here to go and explore that. Obviously, I know a lot about the 4-year college experience just because that's the main thing that I counseled students about. But I'm familiar with, other 2-year and other options. And then it's been fun to learn more just about certificates and going straight into the workforce and military and all those different options that students have that I wasn't as familiar with. So it's been a learning and growing for me here the last few months as well.
Yeah, that's great. And we were just talking about it before the live stream. This is great because you have, both sides of the view from the college view and then in the high school. So seniors, listen up because there's about to be some hot tips in here.
I'm not just a high school counselor.
And so just to jump right into it, what are the top three things seniors should prioritize to ensure they are fully prepared for college?
So I was really thinking about this because I thought there's such a big list, but I was trying to narrow it down. So I think just a job shadowing or any kind of career exploration that you can do is a big help. I know personally, I thought I wanted to do several things. And then when I did a job shadowing, that was actually not what I wanted to do. So it was nice to figure that out before I spent a long time getting a degree for that. Kind of along with that, then also, and I'll tell you, I was a campus visits coordinator for several years there. So visiting schools is big on my list. So I think maybe once you've narrowed down or have some career ideas, find schools that have those and then visit schools, visit different kinds of schools, visit different sizes just to figure out what you like. Because same lines, you might have an idea, think that you want a certain school or a certain location. And then when you actually go there, it's doesn't feel right. So that is I think those kind of go together a little bit. And then last is to have a plan to pay. And I would say a plan to pay that's versatile. So it's not putting all your eggs in one basket, putting it all on, I'm going to get this one really big scholarship, but just a very diversified plan to pay so that if you don't get one scholarship, that doesn't completely derail you. So to have some different ideas and ways and things you can do for that.
Those are great. Yeah. Especially job shadowing. My mom was actually a nurse, and I did shadow at a hospital once and realized that I can't do blood. So
Yeah.
it's important to figure those things out.
And this sounds so bad, but I feel like TV really is misleading to us because that was me. I wanted to be a lawyer and then I worked in a law office. And let me tell you, I did not have my Law and Order moment. So I said, I can't do this. I got to work with people. I can't sit in here and research. So, but not what I thought it was.
And so now that these students are starting to visit colleges and stuff, when it comes to applying, there's a thing called the Common App in Nebraska. Can you kind of just give us a basic rundown of it? What is it, and how can seniors use it?
Sure. So I'll say I'm not super familiar with this from personal experiences. We didn't use it at the college I was at, but it is just a way. The core of the application is the same, so that you're basically don't have to keep repeating or doing the information differently. And then the schools that use it then might have a supplemental section that's specific to their college or university then that you fill in. But it just kind of streamlines, excuse me, the process for the student, so you don't feel like you're doing the same, entering the same information repeatedly for that. I believe for Nebraska, there are some schools that use it, and you can look on their website, the Common App website. Also, I think they tells you what schools use it, so you can see if that works for a good chunk of schools that you're wanting to apply for. Also, I was doing just a little research online about it as well to educate myself some more. And some schools might offer the Common App and their own application. So they suggested contacting the school and asking if they had a preference of which one that you used.
Awesome. Yeah, I do. I remember using the Common App just a few times when I was applying around to colleges, and it's nice because you type in a lot of the same information over and over and
Right?
over.
It's like your autofills already fills
Yes.
it in for you. We all love that.
A big part of most college applications is the ACT or SAT score. And so, is it worth retaking the ACT or SAT, and how can students best prepare for a retake if they choose to do so?
So I actually just had, it's funny, I had a conversation with a student today about this. Actually, no, two students today. I don't know what it was today, one at lunch and one in a class, because they were wanting to maybe get signed up to retake it. And my question was, why? So I think it depends on the student. It kind of can depend on scholarships or admission requirements. So it's all kind of to the student. If a school that you are looking at, you can get a better score that would get you a bigger scholarship, or maybe you're on the line if they still use a test score as part of their admissions process, then that can be beneficial for a student to do that. Now, also, we usually say pretty average, you'll raise your score 1 to 2 points. So that's another thing to think about. If you're trying to, you think you're going to retake it to raise your score maybe 10 points to get this ultimate scholarship, that might not happen. So you just have to be prepared. Still, you mean you can retake it, but still just be prepared that that might not be the outcome that you get. Also, I would say depends on the deadlines too for those scholarships. So depending on test dates and availability of testing centers where you're located, it could be that could be a deciding factor too if there isn't something available for you to take it in order to meet that scholarship deadline. So it's always good to ask your college admissions person what would be the last ACT, or hey, I'm considering retaking it. Would it, where would I be for scholarships or that? If you do decide you're going to retake it, my kind of advice on that would be to look at your like content area score. So what you got in math, English, science, and see where you need to maybe put a focus. So your lower scores, typically people usually either do well on the math and science and not on the English, or vice versa. It's just kind of how our brains work there. So that can give you an idea of where you need to focus. I would check with your school library. There's lots of prep things there. So once you identify what area you need to work on. Also, I would say do some self-evaluation about where you were at when you took it. So how prepared were you academically? Did you take it seriously? Did you get sleep the night before? Were you sick? I know some students were like, it was prom the night before. There's all these different factors in there. So I think some of that can influence our scores there. So kind of reflect on that and what could you do better? I need to go to bed earlier, or I needed to spend more time studying, or or those different things. So I think those would be, once you determine if you're going to retake it, some ways to focus in.
Yeah, as exactly as you described it, my reading and English were better than my math and science. And so I
Yes.
kind of knew that's
Same.
where I need to hone in a little bit.
Same. Yes.
Um, and so another big part of some of these college applications and scholarship applications too, um, are kind of your activities and your extracurriculars. And Education Quest actually provides an online tool called Activities Resume that can help students track their extracurriculars, their part-time jobs and awards. And so when it comes to applying to colleges, what should seniors really highlight on their resumes to help them stand out?
So I would say specifically leadership positions that you held in the organization. You always want to highlight those because not everyone can have those positions, whereas everyone maybe could be a member of that organization. Um, I would also say get specific on how you were involved. I know lots of people might do things just to pad their resume. So they have a long list of activities, but how much did you actually contribute to the organization or participate? So, and even if you're thinking about it now, seniors, there might even be some time with an organization you're in to focus in and get involved. So you do have something more specific to put on that. I'll use our student council for an example because that's what I'm a sponsor of. So we just did homecoming, but we'll have a blood drive coming up. So that would be a way to put something really specific, maybe, what you did, you helped organize or you chaired a committee or something like that. So I think that makes you stand out and also shows that you were active in the organization there. And then community service is another component that I think a lot of students, when I've been looking at resumes and things like that, is not super robust. So I think if you have specifically maybe those organizations, community service things, or even non-school activities, community service, I think will make you stand out because not a lot of students will have that on their resume. So it makes you stand out.
Yeah, especially the community service part. I remember when it came time to especially apply to scholarships, that was like a big component of a lot of them
Yeah.
that not everybody else has sometimes. So definitely
Sometimes
makes
it will be its own section. Like it'll want,
Mhm.
your activities and your involvement, and then it will want community service. So I was thinking about, we just did our school activity association, the believers and achievers that they recognize. So our school could nominate 4 people. So we collected the applications, and there was one section of your school activities, and one section needed to be outside of school, community organizations, work, anything like that. And so some students had a really long list on the school and nothing on the other. And it just shows you're more well-rounded. You can balance, manage your time, all those things.
Yeah. And so now that we have our SAT scores, our activities and everything pulled together, kind of the ideas of what colleges we want to go to, do you have any advice for seniors who are still narrowing down their college options? Maybe they have a pretty big list. What are some big factors students should consider when deciding to apply and which school to eventually attend?
Yes, this was actually one of my favorite activities I used to do with groups when we would have group visits, because it was just kind of a fun. Is I had a worksheet and they had to circle. I had all these different kind of factors, and they had to circle which ones were important to them and then rank them. What were their top 3? And then we kind of would move around and split up and talk about why that was important or that. So it was really interesting to see, especially when you were with maybe a freshman group versus a junior group, on kind of their priorities there. But I think ultimately you have to decide, the student needs to decide what is important for them. I would say pretty common ones, just from my college admissions experience. Size is a big one. For us, it would usually, students were looking for a smaller school when they were visiting our school. So that can be one. I think distance from home or location. So whether you want to be far away from home or within an hour's drive from home, can factor in pretty big. Major in career field. Now, I would say that's probably only for about half of students, and that might even be a generous estimation, just because a lot of students are a little bit unsure what they want to do, or it might be something that's more general that's offered at a lot of schools. So you're not necessarily narrowing schools down because they don't have your program. I'll just use business as a pretty general example of that. So if that's the case, that you're wanting something that's offered at a lot of schools, that's my advice, is really to dig into the programs at the schools. So see if you can talk to a professor. Can you shadow a student in that area at the school, just to really get an idea? Does the school have any events that are geared towards that? Like we had a criminal justice day or a teacher education day or something like that. So you can get an idea of what is that major, that program look like there. Extracurriculars, and I would say that's for about half of students. So some students were wanting to continue maybe a sport or music, theater, something like that, or there's maybe clubs we're factoring in on there. So that sometimes is a factor, sometimes a bonus if you're maybe all things are equal. Well, this one has 3 really cool clubs that I'm intrigued by. So maybe that brings it to the top. Campus atmosphere and environment, which I think you get from your campus visit. So just kind of like how you feel on campus. And then cost and scholarships, I would say, is your other pretty big deciding factor. But I'm going to tell you, like, it might be a little bit early to be making those determinations on cost and scholarship because you might not know if you're going to get or qualify, for a scholarship quite yet. So really, this all comes back to a lot of these things you can figure out or decide if you visit schools.
Yeah,
Always come back to that.
absolutely.
And I would tell students too, like a lot of times your campus visit experience. I was having this conversation with a student last week because she had visited 2 different schools and was telling me like how vastly different the visit was and how that was influencing her decision. And I said, a lot of times your campus visit can be sort of indicative of what your student experience is going to be like there. So if you were in a big group, it might be because it's a bigger school, and that's just how it is. If the faculty was able to give you one-on-one time and willing to give you that time, guarantee they're going to do that when you're a student there. So you can definitely kind of figure those things out, but you do have to visit more than one school to have a comparison to even know.
Yeah. And I know you brought up scholarships towards the end there just a little bit. And so just kind of start to swing that way.
Yeah.
When should seniors start applying for scholarships, and what resources can they use to find them?
So I'm going to say really check with your school. Kind of depends on deadlines. I know some schools will have an earlier deadline. A lot of schools, it seems like, here we're going to, kind of maybe like a December 1 priority date. So that might be something to look at. So you can start applying as soon as, I would say, applications are open. There's no reason to wait for that. So as soon as you know that the applications, for the school is open and that you're interested and the scholarship application's open, go ahead and do that. Make sure you know the deadline, I guess, so when does your last minute, if you're a procrastinator, maybe do my best work under pressure. So if you have that, I would say it's good to start working now. If there's not tons of other things going on, maybe as far as deadlines on an essay or a personal statement. Now, not every school or scholarship is going to require one of those, but probably quite a few will. So it's good to just take some time and work on that. So you have that, and maybe have, an English teacher or counselor, or if, a few people review that. And then that way you just have that done and ready to go, submit when you are ready to do those. Say like college websites or your admissions counselor at the schools are going to be really good resources as far as deadlines and what you need to do. Your high school counselor too. Most local scholarships, in my experience, aren't usually until the spring. So I I would say check your email too. I had a student today and he was asking me about retaking the ACT. And I said, did you read my email that I sent you last week about, it was offered and here's the dates and this? And he said, I don't check my email. I have 700 unread emails. And I said, that's a problem. So don't be that student. But check your emails because they're usually always going to be sending information, deadline, especially reminders in your email. And then, of course, I have to plug Education Quest or their Scholarship Quest website. So I've directed a lot of students to that for sure. I'm going to caution you, which Education Quest helps with this, caution students to not just go Google college scholarships and then get on a bunch of, that's kind of what I had to do back in the day. And then you get all these spam emails and you're like, what did I sign up for? And that. So I feel like Education Quest has done sort of that work for you and kind of vetted those websites and resources to what is reputable, and you can go in there and filter them out. You guys have done all the spam work. So that is helpful for sure.
Yeah. And I definitely heard you earlier about the procrastination part. Please don't procrastinate, y'all. I was so stressed.
So hard, so hard.
I know another big part of kind of a lot of scholarship applications, not all, but some, are letters of recommendation.
Mhm.
And so, again, just kind of a basic rundown, like what are they? When should students request these letters? And who should they consider when choosing the recommenders?
So my biggest advice on this is do not procrastinate. You have to give your references ample time. So I'm going to say, I would say probably 2 months is a good time just to maybe ask, because there's a chance maybe a person would say no, or I'm just not able to do that, or I've already committed to writing 10 others or something like that, especially maybe if you're at a big school where you have people being asked for a long list. So I would say give yourself ample time. So these are going to be, and it might be specific on the scholarship. A lot of times it's a teacher. Sometimes it's maybe a teacher and then maybe an employer, or someone maybe that you have worked in a community organization with or something like that. But just someone who knows you, that's not a family member. So don't, I know it'd be all great if our best friends could write them for us, but that is not really what they're looking for. So someone that is, not a family member, but that just can give the scholarship committee a little bit more of a picture of you, because they're going to have your resume or your application there, but you want, a teacher that can speak to, okay, you got an A in the class. Clearly, you're smart. You can do the content. But a teacher can write about how maybe you were a leader in the class, or you worked really well with others. You had really good time management skills, just all of those things that you're probably doing, but they don't come across just on a transcript or, even an application necessarily. And the same with maybe like a boss, or if you say you volunteer, you youth coached, or, something like that, just letting the scholarship committee know kind of who you are as a person. But you don't have to do it about yourself, because it's always weird kind of to talk about yourself, right? So let somebody else kind of do that for you. But I would say give them ample time, and then, check in with them frequently-ish, kind of as it gets closer. Here, are you still able to do that? Have you been working on it? That kind of thing. So that's the one thing, yeah, you cannot procrastinate on. I've had teachers tell me, because we had one scholarship, the RHOP, Rural Health Opportunity Program, that did require 3 letters of recommendation, and it was very specific. It had to be a math or a science teacher, and another teacher, and then a non-teacher. So very specific on that. So maybe math or science, if you're at a small school, that might be a limited number of people. And teachers would usually tell me if they didn't have, like, say, at least a week or a couple week, every person's different notice, they would just automatically say no, because they want to feel like they can give a quality product, that they can deliver that. And if you're only giving them maybe a week or 3 days or something like that, then they'll say no. So just be prepared. You might have some that will be able to do it last minute, but you're going to get a better reception and better letter if you give them plenty of notice.
Don't procrastinate.
Yeah, it's like the theme.
And just to change lanes just here for a second, because I really want to touch on first generation college students. I was fortunate enough to have my mom who went to college, and so she kind of talked me through the process. But what kind of tips do you have for prospective first generation students as they navigate the world of colleges and applying to college?
Well, I'll start by saying I'm a very proud first generation college student. So I knew nothing. I think that's one thing I like enjoy so much about the work that I do is like it's getting to help students through the process and just empathize with them and say I wasn't there. I mean, I walked in to class the first day of college and didn't have my books because I didn't know that you had to buy your own books in college. So I leaned over and asked the person next to me, when did they hand out the books? Did I miss, like, I didn't think I was late to class. Did we get them at the beginning? Did I have to go pick them up? And they said, well, you have to go to the bookstore and buy them. And I was completely blown away. So just things like that. So I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. That's my biggest thing is just ask questions. No one on the college side or your high school counselor or anything is really going to expect you, whether you're first generation or not, to automatically know things. I mean, things are changing all the time too. So sometimes when we think we know, it's different. So just definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. And along those lines, get connected. So whether that's with your counselor, your maybe admissions, like your high school counselor, maybe it's your admissions counselor representative at the college. Could it be a faculty member, maybe in the area that you want to go into? Just get connected, find a person that you feel really comfortable asking all those questions, even if you think this is a silly question. They were happy that you ask it rather than show up and not have your books like someone did. um, there. And also, I would say use your resources. So, I mean, especially if you're in maybe some more metro areas, there might be community organizations that are geared towards helping specifically first generation students. So there's resources there. I'm thinking maybe like a College Possible or some, an organization like that that does college prep or takes you on visits, things like that, tries to help with all those potential obstacles for that. And I would just say, yes, just connect it and ask questions. Those are my biggest ones.
Yeah, awesome. And to kind of talk about just a different kind of student, if a student is considering deferring their college admission or maybe even taking a gap year, what are kind of the pros and cons that they should consider?
So I would say my question is always when students would say that, why? I would say why? Like what is your reasoning, I guess? And then a lot of it then comes down to like, are you doing it because maybe you're going to go into the military or you're going to go on a mission trip or financially, maybe you don't feel prepared. So you think you need to work for that. So whatever the why is, can kind of change your pros and cons too, I think, on that. But I would say your biggest question to ask on it will be to the college is what does that look like for scholarships? And that's going to be kind of different everywhere, whether they are willing to like hold those scholarships and consider them yours, or you reapply, but you're eligible for those incoming, first year scholarships. Some schools will say, well, if you don't come, there's only available to right out of high school. So now you're into where a transfer or, a different kind of scholarship population. And what does that maybe look like for that on there? Typically, if you're doing something like the military or a mission trip, something like that, as long as there's, documentation, then the school will most always honor it for that. But there's other reasons. I would just say reflect upon it. Now, I'm saying this from someone who is now going back to school to get my master's. And so it's just a lot easier to just do it and it's a lot harder to get back into it for that. Now, I think sometimes students are taking, I've seen that the gap year kind of recently just because they're unsure of what they want to do. So um, it's not that they don't feel prepared or anything like that. It's more unsure and so maybe not ready to commit. So I think that can go back to maybe doing some job shadowing or those career explorations to help you figure that out a little bit on there. So I mean, I think pros is if you wait, you can potentially be more mature, maybe, and maybe use you if you use your time wisely during that gap year and you are doing some career exploration or you are working and saving money or different things like that, then you're definitely probably going to be maybe better prepared than you would have been for that. But it's just so easy once you get to doing those things like a working or something to just keep doing that and not go to school.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Um, and just to kind of wrap it all up, almost to kind of take us full circle here, it's our final question.
Okay.
Um, what is one final piece of advice you would give to every high school senior as they prepare for graduation and not only college, but just this major life transition?
I think it would just be ultimately like to listen to your gut, like trust your gut, trust yourself. You're gonna have a lot of people, kind of weighing in on your decision, and it's great. And those people, like especially your high school counselor or your parents, your family, are gonna have probably great advice and suggestions. But ultimately, it's your path, it's your future. It's your decision. So you really have to um, make sure that you're listening to your gut and that is the right choice for you, not because of other kind of outside factors coming in. If it's your parents' alma mater and your best friends going there, then those are great bonuses. But make sure it's your decision and best path for you.
That's great advice. The
Which
school
when
I
you're, I mean, younger, you can feel like hard, like I don't even know if this is, but you just gotta like just feel it.
Yeah, the school I ended up going to is typically the one that everyone in my high school would go to. And when it got towards the end of the spring semester, I found out nobody else was going there with me. I was a little scared, but I knew
Oh
it was
yeah,
the right place for me. And so in the end, ended up very successful because I graduated college. So that's
yeah.
good. But
hmm And
yeah,
some people make that decision. They'll, say, oh, everyone from my high school goes to this school. I don't want to go there. I want to do something different, which is great. I mean, explore those, but still, you have to make sure that it's the right choice for you. Maybe the school that everyone else is going for has the best program for you, though. So just have to think about what's a way to make my own, way there and not hang out with all my high school friends or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your expertise tonight.
Sure.
Um, we are going to quickly take a couple of audience questions just before we wrap up the live stream here. Um, let's see. The first one, I've taken the ACT. Should I try the SAT?
I would say check with your school first. I would say most schools will. I mean, except that typically your scholarships are going to be give you an ACT, but there's always a conversion, so you might ask. So it's been kind of a if your math and science is the ACT focuses a little bit more on that. So we used to kind of tell students, well, if maybe English is more your strong suit, you might try the SAT because you might could score higher that way. So I think it kind of depends on your your aptitudes and also the school accepting it for the scholarships.
Yeah. Looks like, what is a super score?
So the super score is kind of a newer thing, and it is taking your best scores for each content area. If you take the ACT, say more than once, so it'll take your best English, your best science, best math, best writing, and then make a composite score from those best scores. So it's just interesting how the kind of ACT I think has evolved. So when I was in high school, it was very much you only take it once. Schools would not usually accept if you took it more than once. They would only take your first score. So there wasn't any, push to retake it or take it again, really, for most students. And then it definitely changed to yes, take it. We'll always take your highest score to now like the super score of we're gonna, put because what if you were like we talked about, you had prom the night before this one, or you were sick or something. So it does take those. And I would just check with colleges because they're all kind of different on their policies on taking the super score for that.
Yeah, I definitely missed the super score. I think by a year or two. It
Yeah,
happened at
it's only been about
graduating.
2 or 3 years, I
Yeah.
think, if I can think back.
Still a little salty about it. No, I'm just kidding. It's
And I
okay.
believe there's a change coming. I want to say next year where you can students will just be able, sorry, seniors, but just be able to retake sections of the ACT. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so say, you want to bring your science score up, you can just take the science portion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, seniors, but good luck,
I know,
juniors.
sorry.
And it looks like the last audience question we have here, and I think it's something that you touched on just a little bit earlier in the live stream. When is the latest I can take the ACT or SAT and have colleges accept the new score for scholarships?
Sure. So I would say that yeah would depend on the college. Pretty common to have December 1 deadline, so that would probably be like the October ACT. Some might have a January deadline, so perhaps that December 1 for that. Now that's going to be for scholarships. I I would say the colleges are typically the ones that are looking at the ACT score most of the time. I mean, you could check with your counselor. Most of the time, our local scholarships don't have much emphasis on that ACT. That's more usually like community and school involvement and GPA, class rank, that kind of thing. So I would say typically you're looking at probably the December, or I'm sorry, the October, December ones about being the last, unless you have
Cool.
a late scholarship.
Mark your calendars, everybody. Do not
Yeah.
procrastinate.
And then remember, the deadline to sign up for them is usually, a month before it. So can't wait on that to sign up.
Awesome. Okay, I believe I got to everyone's questions, so we're going to wrap up here.
My
If
littlest kid coming in.
If we didn't get to your question, please reach out to any of our offices for free help. You can find all of our contact information at educationquest.org. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube to stay up to date on all the latest developments with the FAFSA and college planning, as well as some additional fun content here and there. And finally, please don't forget to sign up for the Countdown to College email to get short weekly updates that keep you in the loop. It's at the bottom of our homepage at educationquest.org, and we are now sharing that link in the chat. And I believe that is everything. Thank you again, Ashley, for joining us. We'll see you right here back next month, October 16th at 7 p.m. for our live stream scholarships, How to Score Big. Thanks, everyone, and have a great